I'm smart. I'm strong. I'm relational. I'm smart enough to know better. I'm strong enough to do this on my own. I'm relational and flirtatious. I was only asking for it. My name's Leslie, and I grew up on the border of Mexico in a small town called Yuma, Arizona. I had a pretty average upbringing. I was a mathlete, and if you've never heard of mathlete, it's kind of like a regular athlete, but you do algebra and geometry and that kind of stuff. So I did that, and I stayed out of trouble, and I had a pretty average home life, pretty good home life, good family. When I graduated high school, I moved to LA, and I pursued school out there. And while I was out there, I fell in love with live production. So much so that I ended up chasing that passion and doing set and lighting design for a company that did 80 live shows a year across the country. So that was awesome, and I got to travel with people, another team of people that became my family that we got to do these live shows with. It was a dream. One summer, in between my two tour seasons, I decided to go to a party with some of my tour friends. I went with my friends Crystal and James. We showed up to this pretty chill party. There was a bonfire out back and some drinks inside, and so as I was waiting for some of my other friends, JC and Nick, to show up, we went inside, and Crystal and I grabbed a drink. And then I had another. And then I didn't remember anything else. And what was most likely hours later, I came to in a room I didn't fully recognize, without any recollection of how I'd gotten there. And I was being sexually assaulted by my so-called friend, Nick. Little did I know in that moment that I had woken up as a statistic, that 1 in 10 women are raped or sexually assaulted after being drugged. I had woken up in a nightmare. Nick and I struggled back and forth for a while. Eventually, he gave up and left. And exhausted, I went to sleep. The next morning, still in a fog, I got up, got dressed, and I went to work. I couldn't imagine that a friend, that someone I considered family, would do something like that to me. So I just pretended like it didn't happen. But as the bruises began to heal, the truth started to leak out, or at least versions of the truth. And I was confronted by the company that I worked for about the events that night. And in an effort to save my job, to jump out in front of that moving train, I agreed to apologize for my behavior. See, when you're in the midst of suffering, it is so easy to cling to any lie that will help you stop drowning. And I was drowning in fear and doubt and so much pain. I needed something to stop me from sinking. So that's the first lie that I clung to, that being assaulted was somehow my fault. And let me just time out here for a second. If that has ever happened to you, if you've ever been raped or assaulted, it is not your fault. Regardless of what you think your reputation was beforehand, regardless of what you were wearing, regardless of what anybody says, it is not your fault. For me in that moment, that's the only thing I could believe. Things kind of settled from there, and I tried to get back to my normal life, and the company asked that I not talk to anybody else about what had happened. But I was angry. I was angry at my friends who were supposed to protect me in that moment, who let me go home with Nick. I doubted God that he had anything good for me after this. And I was so utterly alone. I was drowning. But get back to normal life is what people wanted for me. So that's what I tried to do. And it seemed for the most part like I was succeeding. I finished my second year of tour. I moved home to be with my family after my mom suffered a massive stroke. I got married. I moved across the country. I started a new job, struggled through the first year of marriage, and then the second, and then the third. I started a different job, and finally, as everything kind of settled and all the change was done, I took a deep breath and realized that I still felt horrible. I was back into regular rhythms, but I was far from feeling normal. I was experiencing deep sadness and crying all the time. I couldn't sleep at night, but I was up and exhausted all day long. I had shallow relationships. I was pulling away from friends and family because I couldn't be honest with where I was at. I had trouble stringing simple thoughts together. Just putting sentences together was difficult. And it wasn't until I was sitting with a friend that I mentored, and she was talking about her symptoms of depression, that I realized I was still clinging to those lies that were dragging me down. I had moved so quickly to wanting to be normal that I'd settled into this place called functioning, and I was barely treading water. I was exhausted. I was tired of drowning, and I was tired of settling for broken. I had to start fighting those lies. That looked like getting brutally honest with my husband, telling him exactly what I was feeling and why. I enlisted leaders in my life that I could trust, that I knew that wouldn't judge me when I said I was dealing with something. I started to go to counseling because I needed someone on the outside that could speak into this conversation, this internal dialogue that I've been having with myself. And then I had to start acknowledging those lies. Lies like, I'm smart enough to know better. I'm strong enough to do this on my own. I'm relational and flirtatious. I was only asking for it. Or lies maybe that you can relate to, like emotional mess, victim, inconvenience. No one is interested in my struggle. Not good enough, not enough faith. Or lies like, you're only damaged goods. You will never be whole again. One of the biggest ways that I combat those lies is through music. These days, it's hard for me to find the words to describe how I'm feeling, and I can't put my emotions into eloquent phrases. But I needed something, a pathway for my emotions, a way to express and release those things. And music does that. When I can't find the words, I just use someone else's. It helps point me to reality and to truth. And in a sense, that's what worship is. It's calling out truths about God, and it's a weapon we can use to fight back against these lies. So we can't control our genetics. We can't control some of the things that happen to us, but we can adjust our response. So for me, when I'm feeling the most broken, I turn to God, and as best as I can, I just start handing over the pieces. I get down on my knees, I turn the music up loud, and I just start naming the things that are overwhelming me, naming the lies. And this is really important because lies are like shadows. They can seem like reality. They can look like the truth. And they can be scary. But when you step back and shine a big old light in that corner, sometimes when you find out what the truth is, those lies can feel a little silly. So I have to shift from naming those lies to then praising God for all the ways He is good, even when I don't believe it. Even when it's hard to understand, and even when I don't see it, even when I have zero things to be thankful for that don't feel trivial or forced, I make that shift. And I just agree with what the song's saying when I can't put it into my own words. That's the first step I take. Psalm 69 says this: I'm hurt and in pain. Give me space for healing and mountain air. Let me shout God's name with a praising song. Let me tell his greatness in a prayer of thanks. For God, this is better than oxen on the altar, far better than blue ribbon bowls. Take the poor in spirit, see and are glad. O you God seekers, take heart. Far better than anything I could offer God is my sacrifice of my pain for his praise. Because when we take our eyes off our own pain and turn to a God that can actually do something about it, that's when things begin to shift. That's where lies begin to fall away and we can find true hope, and that's where real healing can happen. Depression sucks. And I can't say that I'm operating at 100% all the time. But hour by hour and day by day, I'm finding more and more hope. And I have people in my life that can point me to shallow waters when I feel like I'm drowning. I am strong. I am smart. And I am relational. I don't have to settle for broken, and neither do you. We are worth the fight. And God is willing to fight for us if we just let him. Thank you.